So this is the Markthal, and I'll talk about it while I walk to the cube houses so that it can stay in view. So this is actually a large indoor closed market that is completely lined by apartment units. You know what it reminds me a lot of? A cruise ship. Think of it. Don't you really have like the sides of a cruise ship with all the cabins, and then the inside you have like the park, like the Rock Urban ones have the Central Park, the latest class, and even on other smaller ships. In the middle you have things like the theater or the attractions, and it reminds me a lot of a cruise ship. Apartments on the outside and a market on the inside. And I'm not sure whether this was intentional, but it really suits the character of a port city, Rotterdam. It makes all the sense to me, and I don't know if it was intentional or whether it's just a funny coincidence. So here, the pencil, let me lose it. Here, the pencil-shaped tower, which also has the windows upside down, and there are other buildings that also have the windows upside down. And here are the famous cube houses. Good lord, is it weird? But you know what? I'm actually somewhat positively surprised. I really expected it to be something like really gaudy, done differently for the sake of being different. And it actually looks more decent than I originally expected. I mean, I definitely respect them for trying to do it. Not sure, or rather I'm pretty sure I wouldn't live somewhere like this. But first, I do respect their commitment to doing something different. I believe to some degree it's experimental, and to a larger degree it is also an attraction of the city. So if nothing else, for the same reason people build weird things for, like in the Middle East for example, this could at the very least be justified as someone interesting for tourists to visit. Yet apparently people actually live inside them, and there are like businesses and hotels and so on. So they actually went one step ahead. They actually made it in fact livable. People do live there and do stay there. And like I said, I'm a bit more cautious on the side of their livability, but as a tourist attraction it's innovative enough. Like I said, people do sometimes build weird things for the sake of it, for a tourist city. It's enough justification. I think is the name. I read it somewhere, and perhaps it is. You know, I actually expect it to be a bit more touristic, like a bit more full of people. I don't know if it's because the wind is so strong and because it was raining until a little while ago, but it's actually quite peaceful. There are a few people around, some shops, a square here. It really looks more like a neighborhood than a tourist attraction from the inside. The stores tend to be all very small, but they even got a Christmas trees in here. probably a branch of the Maas River. As always, the Erasmus Bridge is somewhere in the distance, helping us find ourselves. And the reason this building specifically here, the White Tower, White Huis, I think it's called in Dutch, is considered relevant, is because it was once the tallest office building in Europe, and it's one of the few original buildings that survived the German bombing in the Second World War. So, in a city where so much was lost, this here has a historical claim to fame. And it's raining again. Despite the fact it has like only 9 stories, I think. It was built, if I'm not mistaken, in the 1890s. So back then, this was considered a large building. Now I'm going back to the safety of the cubed houses, because rain here is unrelenting. More upside down windows. Apparently it was really in vogue when they built this region. Unfortunately, inside here it does not rain. So there, the White Tower we just saw behind us. This is what one of these houses looks like from the inside. It's mostly impractical as expected. And I don't know if they are fixed on ships because I'm on a port seat, but everything here reminds me of a ship from the Markthal, with the apartments outside, like a cruise ship, through the design of this house, where everything is a bit small, a bit narrow, and there are also small stairs, small steps everywhere, almost as if we're inside the shape of all the differences in elevation. I mean, it is workable, of course, if to some degree a terrible use of space. Like I said, this feels really weird. It is essentially a tourist attraction that was actually used for living and businesses. I almost feel like it could have been a conversion, like someone built it as a tourist attraction and then decided, what if I sell some apartments on it? But I strongly believe that was not the case. There's some small model there in the floor with the 2 houses, and I'm not sure you can see the Markthal model. Someone had quite a collection on this house specifically, many figurines and books. And they say it's, I think, 100 meters square, which is, I believe, pretty decent for an apartment. I wonder if it was more or less expensive than a regular apartment. This is a bedroom, and I mean, there are no doors here. Was there a always open connection with the office there, or was there usually a door which they removed so people could walk around? And you can see down there, it's just perfectly possible to see the people walking down there in the square. I mean, once again, it really reminds me a ship, from the concave shape of the ceiling to the narrow spaces to the steps everywhere. And yet another floor. I tend to believe it must most likely be more expensive than a typical apartment, purely for the fact it's a famous building. But after all, it's really hard to use all these spaces. I wouldn't pay like half, I would pay like for the equivalent of 50 square meters here, But like I said, it's actually marvelous that they managed to turn it into a house. They did something impressive here. Is this for seating? I hope so. Yes, I think it is. So from here we can see the ceiling of the adjacent houses. And like almost every house in the city, it's really warm inside. They're even managing to grow some plants. Cactus, for sure. Is it grow of cactus, cacti? Cactus for sure. Not anything tropical. But still, at least we get enough light. It's interesting, to say the least. Can't argue with that. Now I will feel my way out, just so you can get an idea of how many stairs you have to get through to get inside the next this place. Is that the bathroom? I just noticed I hadn't seen the bathroom yet. I guess this is the only bathroom in the house. It's closed because the idea, I believe, is not for visitors to use the bathroom, but for it to function as a house, it has to have a bathroom. So here back to the entrance. And some more stuff. Okay, the layout is there. Very steep stairs. Very steep. If only they had rotated the cube 45 degrees, it would have made everything so much easier to fit inside. But I guess then it wouldn't have the appeal. So, living there, cube houses right across the city, right across the square, we have the Markthal. That one, the one I said reminds me of a cruise ship because it has the cabins on the outside and the entertainment except here in the city. So it's apartments on the outside and an enclosed market on the inside. So the cube houses are just come from somewhere around here is the pencil tower, but all these buildings are kind of different and getting closer to the square. Oh, give it a view. So you can clearly see it's glass, it's closed here. There are around 220 apartments, if I'm not mistaken, around it. People actually live here. And then you can see large glass wall here and another one on the back closing the space. So you get a large volume of enclosed space where they keep the stores and everything inside. And it's a relatively recent attraction. I think it's like from 2004. And yet it was a sleeper hit here. Oh, here is the pencil tower, the one with the upside down windows. It quickly became one of the most important attractions of the city. So hopefully, if everything works right, I should be able to get lunch here. And today I won't go the entire day without eating something. So from here you can see the glass enclosure much better. Christmas decoration on the rotation door. Okay, so here we are inside. You can see the large glass door here, and it's I don't know, 45, 50 meters high, and they've painted it with some like fruit motifs, so there are many vegetables and fruits painted upwards. And I'm going to say it exactly like the cube houses. I'm mostly positively surprised by the so to speak good taste in this hall. When I watched YouTube videos and saw pictures before coming here, I was expecting things to be like a bit more gaudy, because come on, we have an entire ceiling of like 50 meters painted with plants and fruits and everything. And if this is done in vibrant colors, it's a terrible recipe for looking really weird. And yet it was done in more like muted colors, so a more muted palette, so it's mostly discreet. It doesn't draw that much attention. And so, thank you. So there isn't, I'm going to walk around the entire place, but the idea is quite interesting, and what I personally like a lot is that it's not that warm inside here. It's definitely warmer than outside, but contrary to many other buildings where you go in and it's super hot and you're already sweating, that's not the case. So on the inside it works pretty much like, I believe, any market in the world. You can see it because of the contrast, but there's the pencil tower seen from here again. And what's different is the fact it's lined by apartments both to the outside and the inside. Once you are inside, it has like shops and places to eat, and all you would regularly expect from any market. So let me see if I can get something to eat here. So I've just finished eating. I decided to try some croquettes because it had Dutch written on it and a lot of Dutch flags in front of it. So I just went and asked for the most Dutch croquettes she could find and asked her to prepare it, how the Dutch eat it. And so I tried that croquette, and it wasn't exactly easy, because most of the food here is very international. This market is pretty much for international food. You can see like Greek, Korean, Indian, there's pretty much food from a lot of countries around the world, and I'm not even sure if this best place to try Dutch food, because there's not that much Dutch food around here. But I managed to find something that was pretty Dutch. I usually like to try the most local and traditional food when I travel, and I'd say I was mostly successful. I'd say I was mostly successful. It's an interesting variety. It's very different from like Brazilian croquette. Ours is more soft on the outside and slightly more consistent on the inside. The Dutch one is very like crispy, very, wow, there is some sun. The wind keeps blowing very strongly, but now we have some sun. Ours is more crispy. The Dutch one is more crispy on the inside, and the The part that goes inside is softer. And so here we're walking outside the Markthal, so you can see how it is really apartment and there are people living there. There's also like 2 supermarkets inside here and a souvenir shop and a few other things, but it's mostly a great place to find somewhere to eat. Not necessarily perhaps to find some Dutch food to eat, because there isn't that much Dutch for it. If you want to try international food while in Rotterdam, then it's definitely the right place. And now I have like it's 15 minutes to 2 p.m. 13:45, almost 13:46, and I have like 20 minutes of walk before I get the Doelen, which is the venue for the VR conference, and I better hurry up because I have a meeting there in 15 minutes. So we're about to get a view from the church. I believe it's the only medieval building that survived the bombing, and so the only current medieval building still standing in Rotterdam. Here you have another view from the Markthal from the other side. And as I said, I'm going to cut the recording now because I better walk pretty fast. I have to be there in 50 minutes and it's, I think, at least 2 kilometers from here. Do I control speed? Speed sense. The closest to completion is the ophthalmic surgery simulation. Am I going too far with this? Literally recording meetings? No, vous êtes un naïf, vous êtes François, enchanté. But continue in English because my channel is in English. So you are